Hello everyone. So in the last two videos we have already covered a bit about Svelte. In this video we are going to cover more related to Svelte. So I'll go through quickly. We have already covered introduction, reactivity, props, logic, events, bindings. We'll go ahead with the classes. So we'll go first with the class attribute. Here we can simply, like, if we want to add a class attribute, we can simply go to any class, and here we can see flipped question mark. Let's say we can use ternary operator to do that. And we can close this. If we do this, we are able to do this. Similarly, given this is most commonly used, they also provide another approach wherein, like, you can say you can pass an array or you can pass an object and it would still work. So if you see this and this needs to be passed in a condition like this, so it works, right? Similarly, you can use a style attribute on the style side. Similar to class, we can have a style like this where we can say transform. Let's say transform, where we say if flipped, then do something else, do something else, and this is done, right? And here we say, let's say rotate y of 0, right? Similarly, let's say we close this and we do bg1 of let's say this is pale golden road, right? We can do things like that. On the similar line, if we want to this can become little wacky as per them. So they have provided a directive as well, so we can use directive, which works like this. So with the directive you can do things like this. You can directly put your statements here. So let's say this is here. Similarly, let's say you have a style 3, you have a style, so here you have 2, here 3, and here if you see it was a black and then it was a golden road, right? So these were the thing. And if you see here we did mistake, we did some mistake, I guess. So expected a token, where did we mistake here? So here you can remove this completely now. And with this transform you can simply say okay, so now you cannot do like this, you would have to do like this. Transform, you would have to assign. So if you see here, transform equals to flipped and then this. Similarly, bg1 can be like this, and this would be assigned, this would all become assignment then. So if you see here, so it is all assignment, right? This works perfectly fine. So this is alternate basically syntax to handle that. Next, they have a component style. Often you need to influence the style inside a child component. Perhaps we want to make these boxes red, green, and blue. One way to do this is with the global CSS modifier, which allows you to indiscriminately target element inside other component. Okay, but I feel somehow this is not a good approach. But yeah, let's go ahead. So let's say here you have boxes and you can do style on top of them. So let's say you do style like this, where if you say boxes and you do you apply global style to them, and let's say background color should be red, and here you put a condition like dot box should be nth, uh, it should be nth child, and that should be first nth child should be like this. Similarly, second, third. So if you see here, you have 2, you have 3, and you can change colors like green, and you can change colors like blue. But there are a lot of reason not to do that. For one thing, it's extremely verbose. For another, it's a brittle. Any changes to the implementation detail of box dot swelt could break the selector. Yes, most of most of, although it's a root, components should be able to decide for themselves which styles can be controlled from outside in the same way they said which variables are exposed as props. Exactly. It should not happen that anyone from the outside can change anything. Global should be used as a escape hatch as a last resort. Inside a box.svelte, change background color. So if you go to box.svelte, this, and here if you change background color so that it is determined by CSS custom property. So here instead of doing this background color, we can say, let's say do it with color property, and if there is no specified, then fall back to this, right? Any parent element such as a div class boxes can set the value of color, but we can also set it on an individual component. Anyone can set this variable, any parent element such as this. Even this boxes can set the variables, or you can have variable like this color, and you can say red, right? Similarly, you could say, let's say put in this, and you could say green, and you could say blue. These values can be dynamic like any other attribute. This features works by wrapping each component in an element. This features works by wrapping each component in an element with display contents. Where needed, applying the custom properties to it. If you inspect the element, you will see a markup like this: Svelte CSS wrapper style display contents color red. Okay, so they are using some concepts of CSS and HTML, which is display content. Because of display content, this won't affect your layout, but the extra element can affect selectors like parent to child. Okay, the next piece is the attachment. Attachments are essentially element level lifecycle functions. They are useful for things like interfacing with third-party libraries, lazy loaded images, tooltip, adding custom event handlers. In this app, you can scribble on the canvas. So we can scribble on the canvas. So we can do this, right? Um and change colors and brush sizes via the menu. We can change the brush sizes and colors via the menu, and we can again scribble, right? But if you open the menu and cycle through the options with the tab key, you'll soon find that the focus isn't trapped inside the model. So if you do this, I guess it's a bit difficult right now here, but let's agree with what they say. If you open the menu and cycle through the options with the tab key, you'll soon find that the focus isn't trapped inside the model. We can fix that with the attachment. Imports trap focus from attachments. So attachment is essentially element level lifecycle function. They are useful like interfacing with third party libraries, lazy loaded images, tooltip, adding some event handler. So let's say in app Svelte, we import trap focus from, let's say we have our own this attachment. Okay, and then add it to the menu with the attached tag. And we have a menu. Where is the menu? I guess this is the class menu, and here we can add attach, and it should be trap focus. Okay, so when we do this, oh interesting, now we can trap focus within this, right? And let's take a look at the trap focus function in this. So if you see trap focus function in this, an attachment function is called with the node, and attachment function is called with the node. Okay, there is a focusable, okay, trap function, it's called with the node. The div menu, in our case, when the node is mounted to the DOM, the attachment run inside. And when the node is mounted to the DOM, okay, whenever this node is mounted to the DOM, the attachment run inside an effect, so they rerun whenever any state read inside the function changes. First we need to add an event listener that intercept tab key presses. So on node we would intercept the tab key presses, So if you see attachment.svelte.js focusable, first thing they are doing is focusable, and with focusable they are getting the zeroth and last, and then doing the focus, and they are just focusing here, and to do keep finishing the action item. So focusable zero this. So let's say const of is equals to on, we say node and key down, and this says handle key down. Okay, on is a wrapper around add events that uses event delegation. It returns a function that removes the handler. So it even removes the handler as well, I guess. Second, we need to do some cleanup where the node is unmounted, removing an event lesson, restoring focus to where it was before the element mounted. As with the effects, an attachment can return a t-out function which runs immediately before the attachment reruns or after the attachment is removed from the DOM. So similarly here, to do finish, if you do this, and if you do this return, and this is like this, and you say off, or you call off and you say previous, and dot focus, you somehow had access to previous which you stored, and now you can do this. Now when you open the menu, you cycle through the options with the tab key. So if you do this, you do this, and when you do this, it's back. Attachment factors, often you need an attachment to depend on some other parameters or component state. In this scenario, you can use attachment factory, a function that returns an attachment. In the exercise, we want to add a tooltip to the button using a tp.js library. We want to add tooltip to this button using the attachment is already wired up with the attached tooltip. So attachment is already wired up with attached tooltip, but if you hover over the button and focus it with the keyboard, the tooltip contain no content, right? First, we need to convert our simple attachment into a factory function with a return and attachment. So if you see the tooltip, we would have a tooltip here. In the tooltip, there is a node and it directly acts, but rather node should not be here, return, and it should take a node and it should uh, perform the operation. We would remove the node from here and we would do it here, right? So now this is the factory. Next, the factory needs to accept the options we want to pass to the TP. So it would accept the content, and those content would be passed to TP, and TP is another library. The tooltip content expression runs inside an effect. So the attachment is runs inside an effect. So the attachment is destroyed and recreated whenever content changes. Yes, exactly. Finally, we need to call the attachment factory and pass the content argument in our attached tag. So if we see our attached tag, there is a tooltip. Here we would have to pass some content. And what is that content? And content is something here, hello, right? So if we see this, it's directly passed. Interesting. The transition. Uh, Yep, transition is the last part, I guess. So let's see how much we can cover. We can make more appealing user interfaces by gracefully transitioning element into and out of the DOM. So it makes this very easy with the transition directive. The first import the fate function from the Svelte this. So from here we say import and we say fade. We want to import fade from here, and that should be from, and this should be svelte slash transition, let's say, and here we say let's visible and add it to the p element. So we have a p element here, and we simply say transition and fade, transition, transition, and transition should be fade, and this is a fade, right? So this is fade in, fade out, right? Next is transition function can accept parameter replace the fade transition with fly. So try this with fly, and here with fly transition fly would accept values like 200 and duration of 2000. Okay, so if we now do this, interesting. Note that transition is reversible if you toggle the checkbox while the transition also can transition from the current pointer rather than a beginning or the end. Interesting. This is very interesting. Instead of the transition directive, an element can have in or out directive both together. Import fade alongside fly. So let's say we import fade as well. So here in the p tag we say in should be fly, or let's say this is transition, right? We say in should be this and out should just fade in and fades out, right? So let's say we do this, we do this, we do this, we do this. This is interesting. The transitions are not, in this case the transitions are not reversed. This, yep. The Svelte transition module has a handful of built-in transition, but it's very easy to create your own. By the way of example, this is a source of the fade transition. So fade transition has a node and it has a delay and duration. So it feels like it's a previous thing that we covered just now. It's an attachment only. So you get this node dot opacity, and this is O, then delay, duration, and CSS. The function takes two arguments, the node to which the transition is applied, any parameter that would passed in, and it turns a transition which can have the following property: delay millisecond before the transition begin, duration the length of the transition millisecond, easing in a p to t easing function. Sees the chapter on tuning CSS function where this and take function that has some effects on the node. The t value is 0 at the beginning of intro and the end of the intro, 1 at the end of the intro and beginning of the intro. Most of the time you should return the CSS property and not the tick property. A CSS transition animations run of the main thread to prevent jank where possible. Svelte simulate the transition and construct a CSS animation, then lets it run. For example, the fade transition generates a CSS animation somewhat like this: opacity 0, 0.1, 0.2, and 1, right? We can get a lot more through creative though. Let's make something truly gratuitous. So we had a fade here. Let's import. So let's import. This is elastic out from Svelte easing. Okay. So we have imported this visible, and there is a spin function which returns a duration and CSS. And in CSS, there was this which we would remove with this, and we would say const east, let's say, which is elastic out of t, which we already have, and it returns this, and wherein we say transform, and it can scale like something, let's say dollar east, 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 and let's say rotate. We have rotate, and which says, let's say east into 1080 degree, right? We can use degree here because ease is multiplied here, and we can close this, and then color we can say HSL, and it should be dollar math dot trunk t into 360. And similarly, like we replicate this, let's say. Okay, so we do this, we do this. So math dot mean this is, and this should be let's say 100 comma 1000 into u, and it should be percentage. Similarly, this should be math dot mean, which should be 50 comma, and this should be 500 into u, and they should be again percentage. So with this, remember, with the great power comes a great responsibility. Oh, interesting. So you are able to do something with this. Let's move forward. While you should generally use the CSS for transition, as much as there are some effect that can be achieved without can't be achieved without JavaScript, such as the typewriter effect. So if you see this, this is valid, and here let's say we do text is equals to node dot text content, and let's say we do constant duration is equals to text dot length divided by speed into 0.01. We have this, and then from here we return duration, we return tick, which should be t, returning this, which is I is equals to math dot trunk, which should be text dot length multiplied by t, right? And node dot text content should be text dot slice 0 comma I. And if we now do this, yeah, typewriter effect is there. Interesting. So it's giving power of basically a JavaScript. It can be useful to know when transitions are beginning and ending, so well dispatches event that you can listen to like any other event. So here we had a transition fly like this. So on the similar intro start, we have which returns us function wherein you could just say status is equals to, let's say, yeah, intro started, right? Similarly, we can copy this, and we can say intro uh, on intro start, on intro, on outro, on outro start, and on intro end. On intro this is end, and on outro end. So intro start, outro start, intro end, and outro end. So this is feed in, feed out, intro started, outro started, intro, outro started, outro end, right? Then there is a global transition. Ordinary transition will only play on an element when their direct content block is added or destroyed. In this example here, toggling the visibility of entire list does not apply transition to individual list item. Instead, we would like transition to not only play when individual items are added or removed from the slider, but will so when the toggle is checkbox. We can achieve this with global transition, which plays when any block containing the transition is added or removed. So if you see this item, so if you do this, right, and if we do this show list, and right, and we have item here, and we have a slide, and we can say global. So global means when placed when any block containing a transition is added or removed. In Svelte, transition are globally by default, and you have to use the local modifier to make them local. Interesting. Key blocks destroyed and recreate their contents when the value of the an expression change. This is useful if you want an element to play its transition when a value change instead of only when an element enters or removes them. Here, for example, we would like to play the typewriter transition from transition.js whenever the loading message I changes. Wrap the p element in the key block. So if we see these messages and this, and we wrap it like hash key I, right, and here we say hash key. If we do this, any change in so you'd like to play transition whenever the loading message, that is I, changes. Whenever loading message changes, so we can wrap, and when it was not wrapped here, right? And when we are wrapping it inside here, so I guess this was all. Like key block destroy and recreate when contents their contents when the value of expression changes. This is useful if you want an element to play its transition whenever a value changes instead of only when an element enters a range. So even outside variable changes should affect. If I changes, then they should change, and this is changing with each interval. So with each interval, they are changing this as well. So and if we remove this, and I guess no, with this it should work. So basically that is the case. It normally changes when element is added or removed, but now you can make it change even if your variable changes. So that was all in this. We have covered transitions, attachment, classes, and styles. In the next video we'll cover advanced Svelte. So that is all for this video. Thank you.